Hi, I'm Levy, your friendly neighborhood Chibi Leviathan, and today I'll be recapping session 16 of Lumineth the Looming Green. When we left off, we were still embroiled in combat with the Aarakocra and his minions. In the process, several of us began to become incapacitated by some of the dust bunnies for the first time since they had been introduced in this combat, which caused the DM to be quite pleased with his tactics. We did manage to destroy those spirits and the little dust bunnies, and then simply have to then focus down on the lizards and the Aarakocra. But in the process, both Ezekiel, our fighter, and Cisco, our druid, were knocked unconscious. Cisco losing his bear form in his unconsciousness for the first time since the campaign had begun, and stated later for the first time in his recollection. As this was happening, Milton did manage to get Ezekiel's body away from the main fighting so that we could try to tend to him. We did manage to destroy 2 of the lizards and knock down the Aarakocra. However, due to losing a few of our turns, things started to get a little hairy at the end. And in order to get Cisco back up, Patch had to step in and use some of his Warlock subclass abilities to get him up using his own hit dice. And Lyric, in order to move close enough to and get Zeke up, decided that with his friend dying, he needed to expend additional energy. And so we have this cute mechanic that the DM instilled that I think I call Destiny Dice. A little bag of 2 dice that actually, the longer we didn't use, seemed to become higher and higher dice as the little campaign went on. So normally we would expend those on a d20 roll, but in this moment, as I had previously negotiated with the DM, I used them to help heal Ezekiel, which essentially caused a slight moment where, as Zeke was fading further and further into death, he saw my character reach out and expend part of his own life energy to bring him back from the grips of death. After that is when we took the Aarakocra down officially, and we wanted different things. Ezekiel and Milton wanted to stabilize him and gag him with a magic ball game, preventing him from doing magic, and Patch wanted to murder him. He did try to resist that urge, but because his intent was still there, and because his patron also wanted it that way for having murdered Patch in the first place, this Aarakocra needed to die, and his hand was forced, even though a heartfelt plea from my character Lyric did make the DC a little lower for the will save to be forced to do this. Patch was unable to resist and fired Eldritch Blasts at the Aarakocra. His lovely little familiar also came down after that and managed to do fire damage to the Aarakocra's body using its dragon's breath that it still had from Milton. Milton then dismissed the spell because he didn't want the familiar continuing to do that while they are blatantly trying to stabilize this Aarakocra. And because he had gone down, Cisco was now not fully aware of what he was doing, as when he got back up, he kind of instinctively turned into a spider, something that is deeply rooted in his family's druid past, and something that kind of let his instincts take over in a kind of a fugue state, fighting against this final lizard for his life. Because Patch had tried to kill the Aarakocra, Zeke was none too happy with him, but still hopeful that we could still capture him instead of killing him because he was stabilized. But with the damage from the bird, and my character's turn being the last one before the Aarakocra could potentially act if he were to awaken, I decided to step up to and use Primal Savagery on the Aarakocra, ending its life with a slight plea to Zeke, apologizing, saying that I'm sorry for these actions. So, with that Zeke turned his rage to Patch because he had stated that it would be so easy right now to take the Aarakocra out just before trying to resist his patron. And that intent to want to murder the Aarakocra for selfish reasons is why Zeke felt that the bond that we had forged, the agreement to keep this Aarakocra alive, to help save his sister, was broken. And so he stabbed Patch through the chest with a critical strike before getting a warning from his new patrons, I guess, that the oath that he had sworn not to hurt the innocent would in fact be in effect here, and if he struck again at Patch, his life would be forfeit. So he did not. Patch sent an Eldritch Blast over to help finish off the last Lizardman along with Milton, and we then kind of took a look around and gathered ourselves after this fight in different ways. Zeke kind of somberly wandered off in order to build a gravesite for his sister who he believed we had all betrayed and left to die. Milton took the skull from the Aarakocra as its body started to disintegrate into dust. Lyric, my character, took this magical orb that was on the body of the Aarakocra and found that it was somehow connected, pulling towards the capsule that we had on us that we were gathering essence for. He managed to merge the two items together and found out that it was in fact full of the spirit essence that we sorely needed, and we could now fulfill our quest by returning to the demon house and bringing it into this capsule. Patch decided that he would go off and somberly started playing some music with his band, because even though the foe which he sought to destroy was now dead, the feelings he was hoping to have from this victory simply weren't there. Cisco decided he was going to build himself a hammock out of spider silk because it seemed comfy. So we kind of all fell asleep shortly after that, with Milton giving the skull to Zeke and him taking a spot by himself, kind of trying to gather his thoughts by the fire. Lyric staring deeply into this capsule now that it was glowing deeply and staring so far into it that he could see the void inside, the space wherein this demon would be captured, this empty cube inside. And I believe it was Patch who had a moment with his patron where he found out that the thing we are trying to protect this world from is called the Rending, which to me sounds like the world is in grave danger.